Cinderella, a fairy tale from olden times, original, from the Brothers Grimm's Children's and Household Tales.
A rich man's wife fell ill, and as she felt her end approaching, she called her only daughter to her bedside and said, "Dear child, remain pious and good, and God will always be with you. I will watch over you from heaven and stay by your side." With these words, she closed her eyes and passed away. Every day, the girl went to her mother's grave, wept, and remained kind and virtuous. When winter came, the grave was covered in a soft, white blanket of snow. And when spring arrived, melting the snow away, the man took another wife. The woman brought 2 daughters into the household. They were beautiful in appearance but cruel and wicked at heart. From that moment, a miserable time began for the poor stepchild. "Should that silly goose sit with us in the parlor?" they sneered. "Whoever wants to eat bread must earn it. Out with the kitchen maid." They took away her fine clothes, dressed her in a ragged grey smock, and gave her wooden shoes. "Look at the proud princess, all dressed up," they mocked, laughing as they led her to the kitchen. There, she was forced to work from dawn until night, fetching water, making fires, cooking, and scrubbing. On top of this, the stepsisters tormented her, constantly ridiculing her and deliberately spilling peas and lentils into the ashes, forcing her to sit and pick them out again. In the evening, exhausted from the day's labor, she had no proper bed to rest in. Instead, she had to sleep by the hearth, curled up in the cinders. Because she was always covered in ash and dust, they called her Cinderella. One day, the father was preparing to go to the fair and asked his stepdaughters what he should bring them. "Beautiful dresses," said one. "Pearls and precious stones," said the other. Turning to Cinderella, he asked, "And you, my child, what would you like?" "Father, bring me the first twig that brushes against your hat on your way home," she replied. Answer: while he was returning from the fair, a hazel branch brushed against his hat as he rode through a green thicket. Remembering Cinderella's request, he broke off the twig and brought it home. He gave his stepdaughters the gifts they had asked for, and to Cinderella, he gave the hazel twig. She thanked him, went to her mother's grave, and planted it there, watering it with her tears. Over time, the twig grew into a beautiful tree. 3 times a day, Cinderella visited the grave to weep and pray. Each time, a white bird would come and perch in the branches. Whenever she made a wish, the bird would grant it, dropping down whatever she had asked for. Meanwhile, the king announced a grand festival that would last for 3 days, inviting all the beautiful young women in the land so that his son might choose a bride. When the 2 stepsisters heard they were to attend, they were overjoyed. "Cinderella," they called, "come and comb our hair, polish our shoes, and fasten our buckles, we are going to the king's ball." Cinderella obeyed but wept, for she, too, longed to go. She begged her stepmother for permission. "You, Cinderella?" her stepmother scoffed. "Covered in dust and dirt, and you want to go to the ball? You have no dress, no shoes, how will you dance?" But Cinderella kept pleading, so her stepmother finally said, "I have emptied a bowl of lentils into the ashes. If you can pick them all out within 2 hours, you may go." Cinderella slipped out the back door into the garden and called, "Come, gentle doves, come, turtle doves, all you birds beneath the sky, help me pick the good ones out, the bad ones let them lie." At once, 2 white doves flew in through the kitchen window, followed by the turtle doves, and then flocks of birds from all over the sky. They swarmed around the ashes, nodding their little heads and pecking, pick, 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 until the good grains were sorted into the bowl. In less than an hour, they had finished and flown away. Cinderella brought the bowl to her stepmother, delighted, believing she could now go to the ball. But her stepmother sneered, "No, Cinderella, you have no dress and cannot dance. You would only embarrass yourself." As Cinderella wept, her stepmother added, "If you can pick 2 bowls of lentils from the ashes in just 1 hour, then you may go." She emptied 2 bowls of lentils into the hearth, certain that Cinderella could never complete the task in time. But the girl once again went into the garden and called, "Come, gentle doves, come, turtle doves, all you birds beneath the sky, help me pick the good ones out, the bad ones let them lie." The 2 white doves came in through the kitchen window and after them the turtle doves, and finally all the birds under heaven came whirring and swarming in and settled around the ashes. And the little doves nodded with their little heads and began pick, 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 and then the others also began pick, 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 and picked all the good grains into the bowls. And before half an hour had passed, they were already finished, and all flew out again. Then the girl brought the bowls to the stepmother, was happy and believed that she could now go to the ball. But she said, "It's no use, you're not coming, for you have no clothes and cannot dance. We should be ashamed of you." Then she turned her back on her and hurried away with her 2 proud daughters. When no one was at home, Cinderella went to her mother's grave under the hazel tree and called out, "Little tree, shake yourself and quiver, throw gold and silver down over me." Then the bird threw down a dress of gold and silver, and slippers embroidered with silk and silver. In great haste, she put on the dress and went to the ball. However, her sisters and stepmother did not recognize her and thought she must be a foreign princess. She looked so beautiful in the golden dress. They didn't think of Cinderella at all and imagined her sitting at home in the dirt, picking lentils out of the ashes. The king's son came towards her, took her by the hand, and danced with her. He didn't want to dance with anyone else, so he didn't let go of her hand, and if someone else came to ask her to dance, he said, "This is my dance partner." They danced until evening, then she wanted to go home. But the king's son said, "I'll go with you and accompany you," for he wanted to see who the beautiful girl belonged to. However, she escaped him and jumped into the dovecote. Now the king's son waited until the father came and told him that the foreign girl had jumped into the dovecote. The old man thought, could it be Cinderella? And they had to bring him an axe and a hatchet so that he could break down the dovecote. But there was no one inside. And when they came into the house, Cinderella was lying in her dirty clothes in the ashes, and a dim oil lamp was burning in the chimney. For Cinderella had quickly jumped out of the dovecote at the back and had run to the hazel tree. There she had taken off the beautiful clothes and laid them on the grave, and the bird had taken them away again, and then she had sat down in the kitchen by the ashes in her grey smock. The next day, when the festival began anew, and the parents and stepsisters had gone away again, Cinderella went to the hazel tree and said, "Little tree, shake and quiver, send gold and silver down over me." Then the bird threw down an even more splendid dress than on the previous day. And when she appeared at the ball in this dress, everyone was amazed at her beauty. But the king's son had waited until she came, immediately took her by the hand and danced only with her. When the others came and asked her to dance, he said, "This is my dance partner." When it was evening, she wanted to leave, and the king's son followed her and wanted to see which house she went to. But she ran away from him and into the garden behind the house. In it stood a beautiful big tree, on which the most magnificent pears hung. She climbed as nimbly as a squirrel between the branches, and the king's son did not know where she had gone. But he waited until the father came, and said to him, "The foreign girl has escaped me, and I think she has climbed onto the pear tree." The father thought, could it be Cinderella? Had the axe brought and cut down the tree, but there was no one in it. And when they came into the kitchen, Cinderella was lying there in the ashes, as usual, for she had jumped down from the other side of the tree, had taken the beautiful clothes back to the bird on the hazel tree and had put on her grey smock. On the third day, when the parents and sisters had gone, Cinderella went again to her mother's grave and said to the little tree, "Little tree, shake and quiver, send gold and silver down over me." Now the bird threw down a dress that was so magnificent and shining that there had never been one like it, and the slippers were all gold. When she came to the ball in the dress, no one knew what to say for astonishment. The king's son danced all alone with her, and when someone asked her to dance, he said, "This is my dance partner." When evening came, Cinderella wished to leave, and the king's son offered to accompany her. But she ran so quickly that he could not keep up. However, the king's son had devised a trick. He had ordered the entire staircase to be smeared with pitch. As she leaped down and ran away, her left slipper remained stuck. He picked it up. It was small, dainty, and made entirely of gold. The next morning, he went to Cinderella's home, presented the slipper to her father, and declared, "No one shall be my wife but the one whose foot fits this golden shoe." The 2 stepsisters rejoiced, for they had beautiful feet. The eldest stepped into the room to try on the slipper, with her mother standing by. But her big toe would not fit inside, the shoe was far too small. Her mother handed her a knife and whispered, "Cut off your toe. Once you are queen, you will no longer need to walk." The girl obeyed, cut off her toe, forced her foot into the shoe, and, despite the pain, went out to meet the king's son. He took her as his bride, lifted her onto his horse, and rode away with her. But as they passed the hazel tree, 2 little doves sitting on its branches cried out, Rucky-die-guck, blood is in the shoe. The shoe is too small, the true bride is still at home." The prince looked down and saw blood streaming from the shoe. Horrified, he turned his horse around, brought the false bride home, and declared, "She is not the right one. Let the other sister try." The second stepsister stepped forward. She slipped her toes into the shoe without trouble, but her heel was too large. Her mother handed her a knife and whispered, cut off a piece of your heel. Once you are queen, you will no longer need to walk. The girl obeyed, cut off a piece of her heel, forced her foot into the shoe, and endured the pain. Then she too went out to meet the king's son. Once again, he took her as his bride and rode away with her. But as they passed the hazel tree, the two little doves cried out, "Rucky die guck, blood is in the shoe. The shoe is too small. The true bride is still at home." He looked down again and saw how the blood had soaked through her white stockings. Turning his horse around, he brought the false bride home. "This is not the right one either," he said. "Do you not have another daughter?" "No," the father replied. "Only my late wife's daughter is left, a small, stunted girl, Cinderella. But she could never be the bride." The prince insisted, "Bring her to me." But the stepmother protested, "Oh no, she is far too dirty. She cannot be seen." Still, he demanded her presence, and so Cinderella was called. She washed her hands and face, then entered the room and bowed before the prince. He handed her the golden shoe. She sat down on a stool, removed her heavy wooden shoe, and slipped her foot into the golden slipper. It fit perfectly. When she stood up and the prince looked into her face, he recognized the beautiful girl who had danced with him and cried out, "This is the true bride." The stepmother and her daughters turned pale with rage, but the prince lifted Cinderella onto his horse and rode away with her. As they passed the hazel tree, the two white doves called out, "Rucky die guck, no blood in the shoe. The shoe is not too small. The true bride is going home." With that, the doves flew down and perched on Cinderella's shoulders, one on the right, the other on the left, and remained there. When the wedding day arrived, the false sisters came, hoping to ingratiate themselves and share in Cinderella's happiness. As the bridal couple walked to the church, the eldest sister walked on Cinderella's right, the youngest on her left. Then the doves flew down and pecked out one eye from each of them. After the ceremony, as they left the church, the sisters had switched sides, the eldest now on the left, the youngest on the right. Again, the doves swooped down and pecked out their remaining eyes. Thus, for their wickedness and deceit, they were punished with blindness for the rest of their lives.
You have just listened to Cinderella, a fairy tale from olden times. If you want to hear and see more content from us, please like and subscribe. Feel free to leave a comment and share your favorite fairy tale.